Bonjour, mes amis. The big news this week here in Strasbourg and possibly in many places around the world was the announcement by our highly respected Taoiseach Enda Kenny to retire as leader of Fine Gael and Taoiseach, and many tributes were paid to him here in Europe. For me, obviously being connected to him through marriage, I had a close relationship with him, but I think looking at it objectively, history will be kind to him. It has to be, because he turned the fortunes of Fine Gael party around, bringing us into government and going to government for a second time, and thus creating history himself as being the only Fine Gael Taoiseach to be really re-elected as Taoiseach. And also, he will have to be remembered for what he did for the economy. Again, we were in a very bad place. Austerity measures had to be introduced, but he bravely took on the challenge. Eventually we saw the Troika depart and the economy began to grow. And now, instead of immigration and unemployment, we have jobs for our young people and a growing number by the day. I think that's a very good legacy. He will also be remembered, I think, for his energy in the job. He worked non-stop, day in, day out, and he also gave great example. Example both in terms of his commitment, but also on the fact that there was no taint in his character. And when we see so many leaders in the world being challenged and undermined by corrupt allegations, etc., that was never the case for Enda Kenny, because he had no case to answer. So I think he can be proud, and we can be proud of his leadership, and hopefully that will continue into the future, and I think it will. Some people think that the election of his successor is going to be divisive. I don't expect so. I think in actual fact will reinvigorate the party and indeed also the country, because a new leader will bring their own dynamic, and that will be a natural transition from Enda Kenny to the next leader. Again, I had opportunities to discuss here in Parliament and speak on the clean energy package, especially in relation to transport. And we in Ireland have to do a huge amount in relation to transport. Almost 96% of what we are using to transport our vehicles and people and goods around the country are fossil fuels. So there's a big change coming in terms of electrification of transport and using maybe biofuels, etc. And we spoke on that, and definitely there will be big changes, and we need to embrace them pretty quickly. I also had an opportunity to speak today on the free trade agreement with Korea. And when I hear people opposing free trade agreements, and then I look at the free trade agreement in Korea, which has turned a deficit of 4.7 billion in relation to the European Union to a surplus of 2.5 billion and has created 200,000 jobs in 5 years. I say, why? How could you oppose free trade agreements of that nature? If you oppose them, then you don't want jobs. It's as simple as that. Also, another area which we looked at and needs to be taken more seriously is the whole area of food waste. I spoke on this. Almost a third of what we buy in the shops finishes up as waste. In some cases, 50%. And I think there will have to be a sea change in attitude, in labelling, in dealing with this issue. Because people actually don't willfully waste food, but it's just the habit and also some of the labelling. And especially confusing labelling like best before and use by. I actually suggested maybe we should get rid of the best before and have a genuine use by date so that there will be no confusion. After all, if it's good enough to use, why do you need the best before? I'm throwing that out there for people to consider. Again, Brexit dominated our discussions in relation to the G7 summit, and also, of course, the role Donald Trump is going to play, both in terms of climate change, but also in so many other ways. But where Brexit is concerned, I got an opportunity to clarify that Tony Blair did not call for a rewording of the a Good Friday Agreement in terms of the substance of the agreement. He immediately pointed out at the Bureau meeting I held in Wicklow last week, where he was one of our guest speakers, that this Good Friday Agreement is written on the basis that the European Union will embrace and has embraced the membership of the United Kingdom and Ireland. But post-Brexit, obviously the United Kingdom won't be in the European Union, and that technicality has to be altered. That's what he was talking about. Finally, in less than a month's time, we're going to have Rome like at home for all European citizens. On the 15th of June is the magic day. I have been working on this since I came to Parliament, and with other MEPs, this is a great win for European citizens, and it shows them how the European Parliament can actually be effective and work in their interests. Leis sin accorda, go dtí an chéad sesiún eile, míle buchas as go raibh.